Hello, this is Max. The movie consists of 3 different stories. Enjoy watching. Don't forget to subscribe. In the opening scene, we are introduced to Isabel, a young and lively girl who is about to embark on a work trip to a different city by plane. While struggling to place her bags in the overhead compartment, a fellow passenger notices her predicament and offers to assist. This small act of kindness initiates a conversation between the two, and they soon begin discussing their respective professions. It is revealed that the man is a classical music critic. As the conversation progresses, Isabel mentions that her first boyfriend was a classical musician named Pasternak. The name triggers a memory in the man's mind, and he recalls a particularly scathing review he had given to a musical theory submitted by someone named Pasternak years ago. This review had effectively ended Pasternak's musical career. Intrigued by their conversation, an old woman at another row interjects and reveals that Pasternak was her student back in high school. She describes him as a unique student who wasn't particularly skilled in anything. The coincidences continue when a young man from a few rows ahead recognizes the old woman as his former high school teacher and admits to having bullied Pasternak. As the passengers exchange bewildered glances, the music critic begins to suspect a pattern. He asks if anyone else on the plane knows someone named Pasternak, and to his surprise, a significant number of passengers raise their hands. It becomes evident that something unusual is happening. Their suspicions are further heightened when they discover that none of the passengers paid for their tickets. Some won them in a lottery, while others were sent by their companies. Similar to Isabel's situation, the music critic turns to Isabel, inquiring about the nature of her relationship with Pasternak. She confesses that she cheated on him with his only friend, who happens to be seated a few rows back on the plane. They deduce that each passenger on the plane has committed some wrongdoing against Pasternak, and he has orchestrated their collective presence on this flight. As panic spreads among the passengers, a frightened flight attendant emerges and discloses that she was coerced into working that day by Pasternak, who holds the position of cabin chief. She expresses concern over the pilot's lack of response and the closed cockpit door. Meanwhile, elsewhere, an elderly couple enjoys a peaceful weekend by the pool in silence. Their tranquility is abruptly shattered by the distant sound of an approaching airplane. Initially dismissing it, they soon realize the plane is heading directly towards them. The story concludes just seconds before impact, leaving the audience to imagine the rest. The second installment of the series unfolds within the confines of a small diner. On a stormy night, an ill-mannered politician named Juan arrives at the deserted establishment, where he encounters Moza, the sole server. From the outset, Juan's behavior is marked by rudeness and sarcasm, as he disparages Moza's skills before placing his order. Frustrated, Moza retreats to the kitchen, venting her dislike for the man to the restaurant owner. However, the owner misconstrues her feelings, unaware of the true reason behind Moza's disdain. As it turns out, Juan was once a debt collector in Moza's village several years ago. He deceitfully entangled her father in a massive debt that ultimately led to his demise. Merely 2 weeks after the tragic loss, Juan tried to get close to Moza's mother by offering her a significant sum of money. Due to Juan's actions, both Moza and her mother were compelled to leave their village behind and start anew in the city. Expressing her desire to confront Juan, Moza discusses her plans with the owner, Alexis. Surprisingly, Alexis proposes a more sinister solution, poisoning Juan's food to ensure his demise. Shocked by her boss's response, Moza questions the seriousness of the suggestion. In the subsequent scene, Moza approaches Juan to inquire if he needs anything else. In an unexpected turn, Juan asks her to evaluate his election poster. It is at this moment that Moza discovers Juan's aspiration to become the town's mayor. Alexis perceives this as further justification for his elimination, believing that killing Juan would benefit the city. Moreover, Alexis, who has prior experience with incarceration, deems life in jail preferable to her current existence as a diner owner. Despite the pressure, Moza firmly refuses to take his life and proceeds to serve Juan his meal. Upon returning to the kitchen, Moza discovers that Alexis has poisoned the food without her consent. Both women anxiously observe Juan as he relishes the meal, awaiting the effects of the poison. However, to their surprise, the poison appears to have no effect on him. Alexis speculates that the poison may have expired and ponders whether expired poison is more or less dangerous. Subsequently, Juan's son joins him at the table for dinner. Fearing the unintended harm that may befall an innocent person, Moza panics and hurls the food at Juan, but it is too late, as his son has already consumed some of it. Enraged, Juan lunges at Moza, ready to end her life. In a swift and decisive act, Alexis takes matters into her own hands, brutally stabbing Juan to death. Moza rises from the floor, now covered in the blood of her enemy, who lies lifeless. In the final scene, Moza and Juan's son receive assistance from paramedics while Alexis is apprehended by the police. Despite her actions, Alexis displays no remorse and appears content with the prospect of imprisonment. The third story unfolds on a desolate highway, where an affluent and arrogant businessman named Diego is driving alone. Suddenly, another car speeds past him, swerving recklessly. Filled with anger at the driver's poor skills, Diego hurls insults and makes obscene gestures. A short distance ahead, his own car experiences a flat tire, forcing him to stop in front of a bridge. Diego attempts to fix the tire but encounters difficulty as the car refuses to start. Frustrated, he calls a mechanic, who promises to arrive within 30 minutes. Just after ending the call, Diego notices the same car approaching him. Anticipating revenge from the other driver, named Milan, Diego swiftly enters his car and locks the doors. As expected, Milan parks his car in front and purposefully reverses into Diego's vehicle. He retrieves a hammer and proceeds to repeatedly smash the windshield. Diego seethes in frustration, desperately trying to control his anger, knowing he is powerless in the situation. Milan escalates his torment by defecating and urinating on Diego's car's windshield. Eventually, Milan returns to his car, and unexpectedly, Diego's car starts functioning again. Consumed by rage, Diego drives his car into Milan's, propelling it off a cliff before speeding away. In the subsequent scene, Milan miraculously survives the crash and clambers up the cliff, giving chase to Diego. However, he cannot keep up with the speeding car. Just when it seems their encounter is over, an overwhelming urge overtakes Diego, prompting him to make a U-turn with the intention of driving into Milan and ending his life. However, before he can act, he loses control of his car and plummets down the cliff, mirroring Milan's earlier fate. Now, Milan has the upper hand. Using a crowbar, Milan breaks into Diego's vehicle, engaging in a violent altercation. The struggle persists, but eventually, Milan manages to push Diego off the car, the seatbelt tightly wrapped around his neck. Milan proceeds to set fire to the gas tank, hoping the car will explode, taking Diego with it. However, before he can escape, Diego regains control and restrains Milan. Back on the bridge, a mechanic arrives, witnessing a thunderous explosion before urgently notifying the police. In the final scene, the police investigate the charred remains of the vehicles, discovering the lifeless bodies of Diego and Milan in close proximity. They assume that the two were attempting to save each other from the devastating outcome. If you are interested in such films, please proceed to the next video on the screen and also share your thoughts about this film in the comments. Give us a like and subscribe. Goodbye.